What is happening, everybody? So, we got it. Summertime conditions, the car ran an 11,955 at 115.2 miles per hour. I am stoked about this. I hope this focuses. Come on, focus for me. There we go. There is the run. Hopefully that focuses. That's your pause moment. All right. So, here's the thing. The goal was to get the car into the 11s in summertime conditions. Now look, I get where guys are coming from when they're going to say that, well, their car runs 11s and will say that it's an 11-second car. I really can't get on board with that mentality. I would never say that my car is an 11-second car unless it can cover an 11-second pass in the summertime conditions that I live in. Lucky for me, I am at sea level. But the problem with being at sea level is that when we have density altitudes of 2,100 feet, which is what I ran the car in, well, those conditions translate to something like this. About 88 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere around 70% humidity with a dew point around 75 degrees. Translation is that the track will go away fairly quickly as the night progresses because it'll start to get a little tacky with the humidity that's in the air. And of course, you don't want to try to get a personal best when you're running in temperatures of 88 degrees. So those were the conditions that the car was running in, and it still covered the 11-second time slip. Very stoked about this. In fact, I may be more excited about this than I was about that 11:58 pass, mainly because it completes the conversation. The car is now, in my eyes, an 11-second car, although barely. I mean, an 11,955 is really splitting hairs, but you know what? I'll take it because it says 11 before 955. Look, the idea is to be able to have the conversation that you can put a 4,500-pound monster on the drag strip, naturally aspirated 392, a tune, a tire, and an air filter and an air box out of a Hellcat and cover that ET. And that's all you need. Now, I will say this. One of the questions that had come up was, but what did I do to the car differently from last week? Last week, the best I could cover was a 12.0. And the only thing I did different, and I did kind of go sniping after a number, guys, so in interest of full disclosure, the car was running with a 3/4 tank of fuel, but I did remove the speaker box, and I did remove the floor mats. Does that count? At any rate, yeah, it's kind of cheating, I guess, but it doesn't matter. I still got my 1190 something out of it, so just as well. And look, the point of this whole trying to get the car into the 11s during the summertime, well, it wasn't just for, testing the car, the tune, to see if I could get the car to cover the number, but it was also in the process of testing a tire, and that is something that I want to talk about just for a minute because it is a significant portion of this run. Now, before, during the fall, I was running a set of Mickey Thompson 275 40 20, basically the stock size, but in the Mickey Thompson drag radial. And that tire was unbelievably consistent, and it would dead hook even when track prep was not 100% perfect. I never had an issue with that tire, but in the interest of testing, data acquisition, and such, I decided to go with the larger size Nitto 305 35 20, mainly for the aesthetic and mainly for testing purposes. Now, I will say this, the car on the Mickey Thompson tire was a more predictable car to launch. What I mean by that is because the Nitto was a little less consistent on the launch, I had to be a little bit softer on the launch without getting any tire spin. Now, we're not talking about a lot here. I'm not talking about the tires just light up when I take off when the light goes green. Basically, it worked out like this. With the same cadence going from, basically idle to rolling on to full throttle. With the Mickey Thompsons, there was never really any guess. In fact, truth be told, I probably could have launched a lot harder when I had the Mickey Thompsons. The Nittos are a little bit different story though. This 11.955 pass was the only pass of the night where the car didn't spin just a little bit coming out of the hole. So, to give you guys a bit of an example of what I'm talking about, when I would roll onto the throttle, I would get just a slight amount of wheel spin, maybe as much as a quarter turn to maybe 3/4 of a turn coming out of the hole. It was just enough to hurt my 60 foot. Now, on this 11.955 pass, I had a 60 foot of a 1.762. If you compare that to my other passes where the car went 12.005 and one where it went 12.07 something, I was losing all of my ET in that 60 foot. And the reason for that, again, is that the Nittos just don't have the initial bite that the Mickey Thompsons do. But aside from that, they performed flawlessly. And I don't want this to be a knock on the Nitto tire. I mean, so far, just in terms of being a really good street and strip tire, I've really got to give the nod to the Nitto. They don't really give up that much. In fact, I would probably go so far as to say that if you're comparing tire for tire, the Nitto may give up as much as 1/2 at the most. And really that has more to do with the driver getting used to launching that specific tire. The Mickey Thompson is just a little bit easier to work with. You can be a little bit more ham-fisted, so to speak, with it, and it's more forgiving. So if that gives you any idea in terms of how the tires were reacting on that night at the track, or at least how the two tires compare, to give you guys a driving impression of the tires on the drag strip, that's really the other side of this testing. So, but that even makes this pass even that much more special. I was able to pull this 1190 off on a tire that's known to be a much better street and strip tire than strip tire, and I was able to do it in a fairly consistent manner without too much of a change in driving technique to get them to hook up. So if you're looking at getting a street and strip tire, and a tire that is, if you're being honest with yourself, going to spend about 90% of its time driving around on the street, and you're not overly serious about getting the absolute, 1/2 best, pass out of your car, then yeah, I would probably say the Nittos, because of how well they did in the rain when I initially got them and was driving around the Texas Hill Country in what was a small storm. So there was that for about, I don't know, almost 3 hours, at least in the rain. And I also want to say this, it also shows just how good that Mickey Thompson 275/40/20 tire is, and how consistent it is. And I guess if the question were to come up where do I regret not buying the Mickey Thompson over the Nitto, considering that I could have had a string of 1190 passes as opposed to just one? And the answer is no. I'm actually really happy with the Nittos because, well, for one, I still got my 1190 slip, so that wins. The other thing that I like about the Nittos is that they do offer a better overall driving experience in terms of street handling, just in terms of how they feel in normal driving conditions, on ramps, off ramps, acceleration, braking, quick maneuvers. I like the way that the Nittos handle a little bit better than the Mickey Thompsons. But if you're going for ET, you got to go with the Mickey Thompson. But at any rate, I wanted to share that with you, give you guys some driving impressions, let you guys know a few of the things that I did to the car to get it down the drag strip and pull this 1190 out of it in Third Coast, Texas summertime conditions. Post up how you guys are running this summer. Let me know if you guys are even going to the track. I know there's quite a few guys that are usually taking the summer off. And get out there and have a little fun with your car. You never know. You set a small goal like this and you reach it. Man, it makes you feel good. Y'all have a great one. That's a wrap. Adios.